Every trip made an impression. It was very important. It was really part of my identity growing up. A lot of people have what they want to do in Japan, and they may come in with a list of things that I have to do this, and if I don't do that, I'm going to be missing out. You don't have to go to the major areas that everyone goes to have a fulfilling, memorable experience that you can take back and remember for a long time.
Thanks for checking in. This is the Japan Travel Pros podcast. Each week, we bring you stories and fresh perspectives about the people and places that make Japan so interesting. Along the way, you'll hear practical advice for planning your own trip. In this episode, we sit down for a conversation with our friend Yuki. Now, Yuki grew up in the States, has Japanese heritage. He started visiting Japan when he was younger and eventually moved here as an adult. Yuki also takes great photos, and that's where this conversation starts, with photography. But don't worry, it's not about cameras or gear or software. It's actually a lot more about what happens when you loosen up the agenda, when you forget about FOMO and slow it down to experience Japan. Yuki and I talk about how Japan has changed since tourism started taking off, what Tokyo feels like these days, why some famous places are still worth seeing, and why you probably don't need to stress so much about missing something. So if you're planning a trip to Japan and you're looking at Airlists thinking, how am I supposed to fit all this in? I think we got a pretty good episode here for you. And sneak preview, the answer might just be, maybe you don't have to. Here's our conversation with Yuki.
One of my first solo trips to Japan, I was just using my smartphone, taking photos. And even if I go back to my first photos I ever posted on Instagram, it's from a long time ago when I took a trip to Japan by myself. I still look back on them sometimes. And when I lived back in California, I printed some of those photos out just using the Instagram filters to edit the photos at the time. I'm like, hey, this is kind of cool. This looks kind of neat. I think after that, I was a little bit hooked, and I got some people checking out the photos, and like, maybe I should buy an actual digital mirrorless camera. And that's kind of how I got a little bit more hooked. I really started getting into it a little bit more, and then got a subscription to Lightroom and started really kind of getting into the editing part of it. And that kind of opens up a whole part of the hobby category, photography, and that the rest is history from there, I guess.
So you get started with photography in around the same time, but that wasn't your first time in Japan.
No, it was not. Yeah. Since I'm half Japanese, I've been exposed to obviously Japan culture. As a kid, it was expensive to visit Japan at the time. Now it's a little bit of a different situation. But at the time, it was more of a once in a while family trip. But every trip, made an impression. It was very important. It was really part of my identity growing up as well. And that was really special for me to, have that connection to Japan. So I already had those experiences visiting Japan and having that kind of that magical feeling of visiting Japan. But after I started working and getting some income, that's when I started, okay, every year, try to make a trip to Japan, visit my grandparents, spend a little bit of time with them.
You were getting started on your photography journey, and those probably wound together pretty nicely, I imagine.
Yeah. I would fly into Tokyo first, yeah, and kind of do the touristy things. And at the time, it was still quite touristy, but not to the point it is probably now these days.
What year are we talking about here?
2012, 2013, yeah, is when I first started working, had some income coming in. So it was around that time, I think, when I started visiting Japan. At least once a year.
And that's really just the time we've established that Japan tourism was really taking off.
Especially with social media was probably kind of picking up at that time too. So along with that, you could probably track the tourist numbers and the rise of social media usage. I'm sure there's a direct correlation there.
We did that, Yuki, in episode 1. We did exactly that.
Nice.
We talked about, we talked about the yen cratering, but look at it from the US dollar perspective. That line's taking off. Social media is taking off. Tourism taking off. really three parallel
Yeah.
lines going up, up, up like a rocket ship.
Yeah, it's really interesting because Japan used to be kind of that dream destination for a lot of people, once in a lifetime type of thing. But now it's been kind of more of a budget destination, which for me was still a little bit like, me coming to Japan is like, oh, I can really plan for the funds for this trip and budget for it. And I'm sure a lot of people still have to do that. But the dollar right now seems like it's a lot more affordable to visit out here,
It certainly is.
more accessible.
I would say that, yeah, accessible is a good word. And neither you nor I consider ourselves to be gatekeepers. It's great on the one hand that it is accessible. The challenge is not that people are coming. The challenge is that distribution of those numbers is not ideal, right?
Yeah. And like already some areas in Tokyo, just think about my morning commute is already very, very densely packed. So there's already like a huge population density issue in Tokyo to begin with, and add more, the tourist population, and you can kind of see how that kind of compounds on itself.
So I was actually responding to a reporter query the other day about this,
Oh,
about
nice.
sustainable tourism.
Yeah.
If you're determined to come to Tokyo, for example, and have less of an impact on Tokyo and on Tokyo residents, then think about where you're going, where you're staying, when you're heading on that subway and all those things, right, as you're saying.
Sometimes I see people with a bunch of, with big suitcases trying to fit into like in the morning commute or in the evening times. Like that's rough. Getting off at Shinjuku Station and you got a big luggage, you got to be careful. Like you can't, it's just even on the platform itself, it's going to take up a lot of space. So just try to think through those, like the timings of when people might be moving around the most locally here as well.
It's good advice. And for a lot of our clients, what we'll say is,
Yeah.
okay, for your own comfort, you might want to consider taking a taxi, particularly if you're landing at Haneda Airport. Why not take a taxi, especially with the exchange rate at this point? Make your first day a really comfortable day, if nothing else. So, Yuki, you started your journeys in Japan. I mean, you came with your family over and over again.
When I was a kid,
regularly.
it was more like every 3 to 4 years, to be honest. It's only a handful of experiences that I can remember actually traveling with my family. And then I think I did a couple trips as a kid with my siblings here and there as well.
And did you travel around Japan at the time? Because I'm assuming you were flying into Tokyo, but then coming to the Kansai area to see family at that point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So my standard route was probably what most people are doing right now too, was flying to Tokyo, spend a couple days here, touring around, getting the Tokyo experience, and then head down to Kansai. And my family's from the Hyogo prefecture. So from Osaka, it'd be like another hour or so to get to where my grandparents lived in Hyogo prefecture.
For our listeners, Hyogo prefecture is the biggest city is Kobe. It's right next to Osaka. So it's the heart of the Kansai area, which is the gateway to Western Japan.
Kobe was the first city that I lived in, and that's where I met you. Kobe, just a shout out to Kobe. I've been to a lot of places in Japan now. It is an awesome city. I think about it all the time. I wish I could live there again. I really miss it. Kobe is great. For anyone who's think about traveling in Japan, Kobe is definitely a place to check out, especially if people are in the Osaka area already. It's not that far.
For example, if you're staying in Osaka, you could go to Himeji Castle in the morning and then spend the rest of the day in Kobe before you're going back to your hotel in Osaka in the evening. We've seen this in different permutations, of course, but that's one way to do it.
I would totally agree with that. Kobe, I think, is kind of overlooked a lot. I think Kobe is a great home base, to be honest. It's a little bit less overwhelming than I think the Osaka area too. I would say reasonably accessible to travelers. It opens up quite a bit of the Kansai area, and like you said, Himeji is close by too. I definitely would recommend a visit to the Himeji area as well.
Yeah, Himeji's great. Of course, the castle has gotten quite popular over the years. Now, you and I saw it at a time when nobody was coming to Japan, literally, because the borders were closed during the pandemic. And we shouldn't say that was a great time, but that was an interesting time.
It totally was an interesting time, and I feel quite lucky and privileged to be able to have that experience too. Traveling, it was right before the borders opened. That is kind of a once in a life. Hopefully this doesn't happen again. But for me, being able to visit these kind of massively popular tourist areas now, but not really have a lot of people around to have a little bit more of a personal, private experience, that's never going to happen again. And I still think about that.
This episode is sponsored by FOMO. Oh yeah, that little voice in your head telling you got to go there, you got to eat here, you got to stand in that line because, well, everyone else is? Oh yeah, you know it. FOMO has been sponsoring Japan trips for years. Problem is, it has a funny way of taking you further away from the trip that you actually wanted in the first place. Now, here at Japan Travel Pros, we're a little different. We help you figure out what matters to you so that your trip isn't built around someone else's checklist, somebody else's social media feed, or some machine's idea of the perfect Japan itinerary. If none of those things above sound like the kind of trip you're hoping to have, we can help you get the one that you are. Go to japantravelpros.com/plan to schedule a consultation. That's japantravelpros.com/plan. Now back to the conversation with Yuki.
Going back to the topic of photography for people who love photos, the Himeji Castle is definitely one of the best. It's known to be one of the most amazing treasured castles in Japan. It's one of the original remaining, I think, 11 or 12 castles in Japan too. It's huge, beautiful. If you can try to time it with the cherry blossom season, oh my God, it's amazing. It's beautiful. I've had those experiences, and I feel so lucky to have the chance to, be there and take photos there during that time too.
It is a beautiful castle. It's personally our favorite castle because we have personal connection. I think as you know, Aki and I got engaged there. It wasn't during cherry blossom season. It was during Koyo. It was during autumn colors, and the garden. The garden is right
awesome.
next door.
Yeah.
As you'll remember, the castle had a light up during that time, and it was a full moon. So yeah, everything just lined up for that. Let's talk about castles a little bit. Matsumoto Castle and Himeji Castle are kind of night and day. They're literally, one's the black castle and one's the white castle, not the burglar white castle, but one Himeji Castle is the white castle. They're both beautiful. Matsumoto, perhaps just because there are far fewer tourists, feels a little more, I don't want to say pure, but I don't know what you call that. But there's something special about Matsumoto Castle and castles, and even some of the smaller castles that get a lot fewer tourists.
It's interesting because there's such a wide variety. Like when you say castle, I think a lot of people have different images of what a Japanese castle may look like. Matsumoto, it's Nakano, right? And Nakano already has quite a lot of visitors especially during the wintertime. But depending on the time, it's not as crowded. And it's also, there's a nice little moat right around the castle area too. So it gives a nice reflection there. And you can obviously go into the main keep. But there's quite a variety of different castle types. Matsumoto might be a little bit more the medium size, but there's some of them it's just the keep that may be left, or just the ruins. You just have the foundation that may be left. These castles used to be like everywhere. Yeah, sometimes, I think during the Meiji restoration, they went through and kind of destroyed all of them, except for a handful of the original ones, and Himeji Castle was one of them.
That's right. Essentially, there were 12 that remained. We talked about the Meiji restoration. The downside is, they got rid of most of those castles, and you can't go to many now. You can go to a lot of cities in Japan. It turns out there are castles. However, there are only 12 original castles. We're saying the castles that have not had their keep reconstructed, and reconstructed is a nice way of saying building a concrete building with castle facade on it. That's essentially what Osaka Castle is.
Even during the spring, though, with the cherry blossoms, I've been there during that time too, and the fall. It's still a beautiful castle. Like it's very ornate. And in terms of like learning about Japanese history and Osaka history, I mean, there was legit a castle there before. But if you're like looking like, oh, this was what it looked like back in the day, and trying to imagine what it must have been like when like the samurai are around, like it's probably not a exact a good representation of what it might have looked like, but it's still, I think it's still worth checking out for sure.
Oh, particularly because Osaka Castle Park is really in the middle of the city anyway. You've got the skyline all around it, and I'm never really sure what's the right thing to do. Different cities have gone about it in different ways. Osaka has the reconstructed castle, and you have a city like Sendai, which up on the hill there is the Aoba Castle ruins. It's a great view of pretty much the whole city of Sendai from there, and you can see basically what the castle would have been.
I think a lot of times it is kind of like a tourist attraction for the city, obviously, to bring in tourists and business to help support the local economy. But yeah, I think overall, in terms of people who are into Japanese culture and history, I think they're awesome to check out. Like I've kind of personally been trying to check off as many as I can on my side and have my own little like castle photo collection. Every time I go to one, I just add to the little album that I have. It's fun to check them out and imagine what it must have been like during that time and think through like what it was like to live there.
Also, let's talk about some of the places that you've seen and experienced in your travels around Japan that hold that historic sort of echoes of the past, as it were.
Actually, one of the recent travels I had earlier in this year was to a small little coastal town called Shimoda in Izu, a couple hours south of Tokyo. It's also not very far. I went there for the first time. Speaking about being tied to the past left an impression on me is Shimoda was actually one of the original port cities. Back in the day, Commodore Matthew Perry, American, came out to Japan to kind of heavy-handedly force Japan to open its borders. But the US wanted to open up trade and, support their military efforts as well. So they sent Matthew Perry with his black ships, as they called it. And Shimoda was that area around there was where those ships kind of harbored. That definitely left an impression on me, especially being, American, kind of visiting one of the first areas where Japan and America had negotiated the opening of Japan. And it's such a humble little coastal town. Again, it's another area that I would recommend that I think is just overlooked. And I went there in February. It was sunny. It was warm. It's like almost tropical beach vibes there. And cherry blossoms were in bloom in February. People don't realize this. Like, people are coming, like, trying to time, like, end of March or early April to kind of, figure out, like, get that timing down right. And it's hard. The cherry blossom season comes and it's gone. Doesn't mean if you miss it, it doesn't mean it's all over. There's other places where you can kind of see it. And I was surprised that in February, it was full bloom. That was awesome. That was just one of the other experiences that I had earlier in the year that was really left an impression on me. There's so many little these pockets in Japan that kind of get overlooked sometimes, and I think there's still a lot to offer and a lot of deep cultural Japanese experience that people can still get, even if it's not in Tokyo or some of the main areas that people usually go to.
Izu Peninsula, those cherry blossoms, those are the Kawazu cherry blossom, the Kawazu Zakura. It's the town of Kawazu in Shizuoka Prefecture.
So I stayed in Shimoda. I traveled quite a bit in Japan, but even me, I didn't realize Kawazu had that cherry blossom festival. It was in full bloom there. I didn't realize that. I was staying at an Airbnb, and the Airbnb host was mentioning that to me. I'm like, wow, I didn't even know that. And such a great tip, and I appreciate that. It's right by the ocean too, right by the sea. And they got like a river area. The trees are banked on both sides of the river. They have the food stalls. It's quite packed. There's got the Japanese locals and tourists there, but not as many foreigners. I think it's still kind of one of those less well-known areas for sure.
For somebody coming to their first trip to Japan, and maybe they're going to Tokyo, and they get up early, and they go to Asakusa, and they go to Sensoji, probably going to be surrounded by tourists when you're at Sensoji. And even in the popular cherry blossom places, in certain parts of Tokyo, and certainly in certain parts of Kyoto, you're going to be around a lot of tourists. I mean, when I say tourists, first of all, it's not derogatory. That's okay. When I travel to another country, guess what? I'm a tourist. And that's okay.
Even when I'm traveling around, I'm still a tourist, right? So I did the same thing. I totally get it.
It is that. But at the same time, there are things you can do in Japan that you go to a place like the Kawazu Cherry Blossom Festival in the town of Kawazu, and you look around and you realize, just as Yuki said, there aren't a lot of non-Japanese here. This is people coming from all over Japan to experience this.
Being in Tokyo, right? I've been to all the main tourist areas here and I've already checked them out. And being able to escape that a little bit and get more of that local feeling was quite refreshing to me. There are a lot of these areas that I think in Japan that are still yet to be explored in this way.
There are 47 prefectures in Japan, and every one of those 47 prefectures has plenty of, I don't want to call it a hidden gem, I don't want to say it's untapped, but relatively calm levels of tourism and the level of enjoyment, that you're going to have at these places, even in Tokyo. Let's be honest, even in Tokyo. Maybe talk about that a little bit as a Tokyo local. You've been a Tokyo local for a number of years now. Where do you go to experience more of the local side of Tokyo?
Even in Tokyo, I feel like this every now and then too. Like a friend visiting or something, we kind of look at the main areas, but seriously, just go on to a different, like, lesser known train station area and you'll find some nice, cool shotengai, the shopping areas, bars, izakayas. And they're just as cool, and they are much slower paced or feel less like, oh, I need to find a place right away. And this, I can't get in here. Like, it's full. All the reservations are booked, and you're just eating with a bunch of, other foreigners there. Honestly, there are a lot of other smaller stations that I've been to. It's like, I have not come across this on any like blog posts or Instagram stories, but they're just as unique and provide a cool local Tokyo experience just as well.
There's the 23 wards that comprise what most people would call Tokyo. Of those, it's really just a handful that most international visitors go to. It's Shibuya and Shinjuku, Taitoku because of Ueno, and then you have Asakusa, and a couple of other, Minatoku, of course, Shiroku. But of those 23 wards, there are at least a dozen, probably more, that not a lot of visitors get to. Itabashiku, not many people go in there. Edogawaku probably doesn't get a lot, right? Arakawa, like you can like go down the list. Plenty of opportunities in those 23 wards. And then outside of that as well, you can be a Tokyo local, as you are, Yuki. You can be a Tokyo local and live there for years and never run out of places to explore.
Literally, never run out of places to explore. Even now, just like if I'm out a little bit too late, I'm missing last train, it's still kind of fun to just take a different path home and just, okay, what kind of shops are in this area, and just take my time to come back home. And I live in Shibuya area where, a lot of, it's one of the most popular areas, most densely populated areas. But even in Shibuya, I'm like, wow, I never knew this place existed. If anything, I get why people want to go to these really popular places. They are cool. It's hard to not recommend them. But if you aren't able to check it out, I don't think you're really missing out. I think some of the more special, memorable experiences are just some of those more local areas. At least that's what I think.
Even in Shibuya or Shinjuku, in a lot of places in Tokyo, and this is also true, by the way, in Kyoto and Osaka and places like that, you don't have to go too far. You can literally just walk usually 2 or 3 blocks over, finding a street that's a little quieter. Now you're all of a sudden in a local area, right?
Yeah. And I think those experiences is actually what I really liked about Kobe as well. Like those local areas were really, you feel like you can make friends with the other regular customers and the people that work at those restaurants. Like that's how I learned Japanese, or really, I felt like I proved a lot by going to those places and talking to a lot of the regulars at those shops and restaurants. But like, yeah, in Tokyo, you really don't have to go that far to find some of those local areas and meet other local, Japanese people, and have a little bit more of a, I don't know, personal experience without having to go to these big, populated areas as well.
Hey, quick time out here. If you're looking at a trip to Japan and everything is just starting to feel a little much, I think we can help. There comes a point when more information just makes your head spin. We get it. Now that's where Japan Travel Pros comes in. What we do is we help you sort through your plans, focus on what actually matters to you, and then you can make decisions with more confidence. Go to japantravelpros.com/plan to book a session. That's japantravelpros.com/plan. Yuki, how do you strike the balance when you have friends and family visiting Japan?
Yeah.
Everyone's coming in with some kind of preconception of not just what they want to do, but what they feel like they have to do, because everybody knows somebody who's been in Japan recently or might even be here right now. And all of a sudden you're the Tokyo local, but they're going, oh no, man, I have to go to this place. And you're like, okay, well, that sucks, but I guess I'm supposed to take you there if that's what you want. How do you strike that balance so that they see some of the things that they feel like they want to see, but also so that they see and do and experience some of the things that they really probably deep down inside want to, and certainly, dare we say, need to experience? How do you do that?
So when I have friends and family visits, there are my opinions on certain places on what I would want them to see and experience and appreciate. In the end, though, to be honest, it is their trip and it is what they want to experience. And like, if it's really like, I think it's not worth it, there are other places I think you should check out, for sure, I'll say it. I do want to be mindful of their experience, what they want to get out of their time here. But I also want to encourage them to think that they don't have to do everything on their list as well. You'll have a good time. I think for any travel, right? You come in with a bunch of things you want to check out, and it's like, oh, I really want to do this and see that. And I want to go to this restaurant. It was recommended to me. Like, I saw this on Instagram, like the top 5 best ramen places. Like, again, wherever you're at locally, go to a local ramen shop there. It's going to be good. Most places are going to be good. You're not going to miss out.
Let's use LA or San Francisco as an example here. So let's say you're living in LA and you got friends visiting because everyone wants to go to LA. And they're all going, yeah, I want to go to the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Or if it's San Francisco, it's, I want to go to Pier 39, and you're shaking your head and you're like, look, I'll take you there if you make me, but
Yeah.
can we do this also, or instead, or both, or it's similar kind of thing, right?
Yeah. So where would it take people to in Tokyo is the question?
What are the places in Tokyo that you would consider to be touristy, or at least well touristed, but still are worthwhile, versus what are some places that you just kind of cringe every time you hear it?
I don't want to necessarily judge people who want to go to these places.
In our first episode, we talked about 3 places that get a lot of tourists. The first one is Konbini, the second one is Ichiran, and the third place is, we talked about markets, and specifically Tsukiji in Tokyo. And at the end of the day, for all 3 of those categories, what we said is, we're not going to judge it for you, but at the same time, don't take our word for it, but also don't take Instagram's word for it, or TikTok's word for it, or ChatGPT's word for it. Go check it out for yourself, see if it's for you, go in with open eyes and an open mind, and draw your own conclusion.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
What are some of those places in Tokyo where you go, look, I don't go there, I don't love it, you might like it, but I'd at least like you to know what it is and what it isn't before we go there?
Well, I think one of the ones that come to mind is Akihabara. I haven't been there in a little while. It depends on what people are trying to get out of visiting there as well. If you're looking for anime figures, if you're into that otaku culture and gaming anime, I think Akihabara it gives you that. I think it does, but it's becoming more oriented towards the foreigner tourist community. So it may feel a little bit less, I don't know, genuine or authentic experience. So if you're looking for that, there might be other places to kind of check out to offer those type of experiences as well.
Akihabara, I think it's fair to say, isn't what it used to be, and there are a number of places around Tokyo that have sort of picked up the mantle and run with it when it comes to anime and manga and things like that. So where would you recommend instead?
Nakano Broadway did come to mind, and I think that is another area that people may not be immediately aware of. Offers that type of anime figures and the otaku kind of culture there. You think you kind of experience that as well. Overall, just that Nakano area offers more than Akihabara. Nakano Broadway, that whole area is actually pretty neat. That there's a nice shotengai there, a lot of cool little shops and places to eat there. So there's a lot of cool alleyways there. I've gone out drinking there quite a few times with my buddies, but I think it offers a lot more character than maybe super popular Akihabara type of area.
For a lot of our clients, we've been doing itineraries that, particularly if they're starting their day, if they're staying in Shinjuku, for example, we'll say, great, in a straight shot, you can start your day in Nakano, and then when you're ready, go on to Koenji, and then Kichijoji, and end up in Shimokitazawa. There's a 4-stop day, a full day. It's going to give you the west side. It does get tourists, but you tell me, what are you seeing these days?
That is a nice itinerary plan as well. I still see quite a few tourists out there, but not the big overwhelming crowds that are in Shibuya and Shinjuku, Ueno, Asakusa, Sensoji area. But if people are looking for more of the thrift shop type of vibes or something, or local cafes, but still kind of getting the big city vibes as well, those areas that you just mentioned, you can totally get that as well and kind of avoid some of the big crowds for sure. Shimokita also has, known for their live music scene, so you can totally just hang out there for the whole evening. And all the other cool area doesn't come up on a lot of people's lists is the Sangenjaya area, which is also pretty neat spots. Just kind of walk a little bit further from Shimokitazawa. Cool little small bars and shops and izakayas and rooftop bars. There's a neat little area around there too, especially for photography too. There's a lot of cool alleyways around there.
I'm glad we're back on photography, so let's talk about that. Sangenjaya, it is not too far from either Shinjuku or Shibuya, and all of a sudden you're in this local area. It's a little bit affluent, but it's not like high level of affluence, right? Is that a fair description?
I think so, yeah.
But as you say, it's got these alleyways, and it all of a sudden feels like you're very much in a local neighborhood with character and charm.
Definitely, yeah.
Got a Japan trip on the radar? You might have noticed something. There's no shortage of Japan-related content out there. this podcast included. But the hard part is knowing what actually matters for your trip. Should you stay here or there, add another city or slow down, follow the popular advice, or ignore it altogether? Book the hotel everyone recommends or the one that actually fits what you want. That's where a lot of folks turn to Japan Travel Pros. We help you sort through the choices, make better decisions, and feel more confident before you touch down in Tokyo or land in Osaka. Go to japantravelpros.com/plan to schedule a consultation. What are some other areas in Tokyo that you go to and maybe go back to as a photographer to capture that, especially it's like, okay, let's say for example it's raining, and so there's going to be some puddles and it's nighttime and you're going to get that nighttime feeling, right? Where do you go for that?
Yeah. No, actually, I've been thinking about that lately because it's been quite rainy. There is something like very atmospheric about Tokyo at night in the rain. That is awesome. It's such a cool vibe. My office is near Osaki. If I have my camera or something with me, or just my smartphone, just my phone, just walking around there is pretty cool. Gotanda is the nearest station nearby there, which is also kind of a nice local business area. But there's a lot of cool izakayas there, drinking areas. A lot of people may not immediately think about it, but it's also a nice little spot there. And there's a lot of cool neon reflections and kind of get the Tokyo vibes going there as well without having trying to dodge everyone trying to take a few night shots. But there's some really cool alleyway izakaya shots that I've taken around that area. But honestly, again, wherever you're at locally, you're going to be able to find some nice shots to take no matter where you are.
So the area you're talking about there is basically the south part of the loop, the Yamanote line looping around Tokyo. And once you get past Ebisu, you're talking about a whole side of Tokyo that's still central, very much so, right? It's certainly set the center core of Tokyo, and yet has a lot of these little side streets and alleyways and neighborhoods that feel quite surprisingly local and probably for the most part pretty quiet.
Yeah, pretty quiet. It's kind of similar to that too. Like Osaki is right between Gotanda, and Shinagawa is a huge station there too. The Shinkansen kind of stops there as well. But the other night I was hanging around Shinagawa also, which has major corporations around there. But there are small little alleyways there too. It's just like there's only like 10 people in this shop, and it's really easy to talk to people. I mean, if you speak Japanese, but I'm sure people would like to practice their English there too. Like happens to me all the time. But yeah, I was there the other night. Little small alleyway, like yakitori, yakitoriya, a little yakitori shop there. Those experiences I think are always feel like authentic, and I don't know, pretty cool, at least for me, especially after like a long work day and just kind of having a couple of drinks with some random other Japanese business person is always a little bit fun.
Let's talk about this from the perspective of somebody who maybe has learned a few words and phrases, but realistically can't carry on a conversation yet in Japanese. What's the situation on the ground for a lot of these little local establishments for somebody to walk into if they're making the effort, if they've said something to just sort of nihongo wakarimasen, they're expressing in Japanese that they can't speak Japanese.
Yeah.
But if you have that phrase alone, you've already told the other person, look, man, I'm making the effort. Can you work with me here? What would you say? 9 times out of 10, 8 times out of 10, they're going to meet you halfway somewhere and say, yeah, come on in, we'll set you up.
For sure. I would say majority of the time, definitely they're gonna set you up. Like I've been in other countries where it's just like I barely say hello and thank you. But with today's technology and stuff and AI, like I think people still feel like, oh, but I can't speak the language. Like how am I gonna get around? How am I gonna order? Honestly, like I don't know if that's much of a issue these days. Like for your everyday thing of like ordering food and stuff, or I don't think you really need to be too intimidated by the language barrier. And I think a lot of people like the experiences that have left the most impression on them are these like local bars or these local izakayas or restaurants where they just kind of like, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if I can order anything, but they just go in and they make a friend, they try to do their best with the local other customers in there. and they end up having the best time. Meet other, other Japanese people who try to do the best they can with their English too, and are trying to meet some other global travelers and make those connections too. If people are feeling a little bit intimidated about going into those places, like, sometimes it really depends on the vibe of those shops as well. It may be just really difficult, even for me sometimes, like, I don't know if I feel comfortable going into this place. Go in there. Like, what's the worst thing gonna happen? I'm gonna tell you, okay, sorry, we're full today. Okay, just go to the next spot. There's gonna be another place right like next door.
Yeah, exactly. And you mentioned, having technology and apps like Google Translate, for example, unless it's a handwritten menu that's really just been kind of scribbled
Oh,
together, Google
I still have a
Translate
hard time
app
with
is going to
those.
be able to
Yeah.
read it.
Or take a photo and then upload it to ChatGPT, Claude. Hey, ChatGPT, like, what does this menu say? What would you recommend from this menu?
So with everything you have at your fingertips, don't hesitate. Sure, there might be the occasional place that, as you said, they're not going to say we can't serve you. They're going to say, oh, sorry, we're full tonight. You look around, it's empty tables, but they're fair enough. They're not going to serve you. Move on down the street. There's 100 places in a 2-block radius. You're going to eat. You're going to drink. You're going to do all right.
Yeah, I wouldn't say to take it personally either. I don't really hear people getting denied that much, to be honest. I haven't really heard it.
If anything, it's actually some higher end. We've experienced this where it's higher end places like an omakase, but one that caters more to Japanese. And they're saying, look, we just can't serve you at the same level because we don't speak English. So if you don't, not that you're not Japanese, but if you don't speak Japanese, you're not going to get the experience that we're known for here. Therefore, you might want to find another place. But they're probably also concerned more about the quality level. And I respect that. On that level,
Yeah.
I'm going to respect that.
Yeah, I get that.
And the beauty of it is there are thousands of options. I don't know how many restaurants are in Tokyo alone, but it's in the
overwhelming.
Hundreds of thousands. I mean, they're all like, you got these 6-seat tiny little places, and do the math. It's
yeah.
just, yeah.
Like, I had a buddy in town the other night, and it's like he's trying to figure out, oh yeah, do you have any restaurants to recommend and stuff? I'm like, bro, just like, I'm not really keeping track of restaurants to go to these days. I just pick an area and walk around and just go in, and it's gonna be good. And that's what we ended up doing. Like, you probably have a list of places you want to check off and stuff. And for sure, if you can get in, for sure, get in. But these days, I don't really look at, like, okay, figure out, look, what are all the reviews here? Is it all good? Just go to the area, kind of figure out, oh, this place looks good. And most of the time, it's pretty solid.
We tell this to clients as well. We have a Google Maps list we've got one for Tokyo, one for Osaka, one for Kyoto, and some other regions as well. And I always say up front, do not take this as gospel. This is more like, hey, if you're in this neighborhood right now and you want ramen or sushi especially, Ari and Aki might have a place for you, but also just look around and you're going to find something good.
I support that 100% too. Like, I think a lot of people are like, yeah, what are your local recommendations and stuff? And I really get that. People ask me that all the time. It's like, hey, what kind of restaurant do you recommend for this so-and-so, like ramen, or, just pick a spot. You'll be okay. It'll be good. Like, there are a lot of these shopping malls. If you go towards, it's not really a food court, but they have, little restaurant areas. And those places are still pretty good. I'm always satisfied when I go to those places, but you don't have to go to a nice, fancy, super restaurant to get a nice quality meal.
There's a guy, I don't even know his name. I'm pretty sure he lives in Kobe, and we probably run into him at some point. And I think you follow him too. Japan Eat is his handle. All he shows, you'll never see an omakase. You'll never see a kaiseki. Oh, yeah. He shows the most basic mom and pop comfort food type places. A lot of them are in Kobe, but he shows a lot of Tokyo and Osaka as well. Yeah, and those are just examples. I'm not even saying go to those places that he goes to, but like, you're going to find them all over. But you're talking about them right now. You're going to find them everywhere, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yuki, as a Tokyo local now, and as somebody who's lived in Japan for a long time, but also as somebody who started coming to Japan as a visitor and still sees it through the lens, no pun intended, because you're a photographer, but sees Japan through the lens of visitors, because you've got a lot of friends and family who continue to come to visit, of course.
Yeah.
Not places and not things, but more in terms of attitudes and approaches and strategies. What's something that you'd want to leave with people to say?
A lot of people have a lot of like an impression of what they want to do in Japan, and they may come in with a list of things that I have to do this, and if I don't do that, I'm going to be missing out. I would encourage people to not really overthink it and be too concerned about trying to fit everything into their schedule, and try to appreciate some of those local moments. You don't have to go to the major areas that everyone goes to have a fulfilling, memorable experience that you can take back and remember for a long time. And I think it's something not even just for Japan, for any type of travel experience. You're not going to be able to do everything on your list. And, that's okay. You don't have to be worried about that too much. You'll always be left with the experience that you were able to remember, check out. Like, I don't remember, like, oh, I wasn't able to go here when I went to this place. I don't remember that. I remember all the places that I was able to go and enjoy. Try to not worry too much about the FOMO. Appreciate what you are able to do and not overthink it. Most places in Japan are going to offer a really solid experience, no matter where you go.
That's huge. And do you find then that somewhere towards maybe the middle or towards the end of the trip, a lot of people that you see who come to Japan go, look, I know I'm coming back anyway because I love it, so I can relax.
I see that all the time. I've never heard anybody like, oh, Japan was just okay. Most people like that I know, or what I've seen is like, it's the best time of my life. I can't wait to go back. I've been in Japan plenty of times before living here, and I had a direct connection to Japan as well, having family members here. But I remember coming back to the States and like having that post-Japan trip blues, or that travel blues, and like, man, I could totally relate. Just the sounds, the train station sounds, lights, the people, the smells, the food, the atmosphere. It really leaves an impression, I think, on a lot of people. It's just so different than I think a lot of areas that, at least on the Western culture, have exposure to. So even if you don't get to it the first time, I'm sure there'll probably be another time to check it out.
Thanks again to Yuki for joining us. I really enjoyed that conversation, and hopefully y'all did as well. We'll definitely have Yuki back on the podcast sometime. So much to talk about. I think the biggest takeaway here is that Japan isn't something you have to conquer. You don't have to squeeze in every famous place, every restaurant, every experience into one trip. Oh yeah, make some plans. For sure, give yourself something to look forward to, but don't be afraid to leave a little room for the unexpected. Sometimes the stuff you never planned for ends up being what you remember the most. Hey, if you haven't already, make sure you're following us on your favorite podcast app. And if you like what you hear, we'd really appreciate it if you could leave us a rating or review. It's one of the best ways to help other travelers like you discover our show. Until next time, safe travels.